Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar today. It's called Employee Ownership in San Francisco, Preserve Your Legacy and Exit on Your Own Terms. We're going to wait a few more minutes and while people are still logging on, so we'll get started momentarily. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Donna Sky from Project Equity. You are at Employee Ownership for San Francisco Business Owners. We are waiting for a few more folks to log on before we get started. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop those questions in the chat, and you know, at any time you could also raise your hands, and you know, we'll get back to you. Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Donna Sky. You are here for our webinar, Employee Ownership in San Francisco, Preserve Your Legacy and Exit on Your Own Terms. Manish Goyal from San Francisco's Office of Economic and Workforce Development is here. I'll let him introduce himself and share a bit about why employee ownership is important in San Francisco and why they've chosen to partner with us to support small businesses. Manish?
Great. Thank you, Donna, and thank you to the Project Equity team. My name is Manish Goyal, and I'm with the San Francisco Office of Economic and Workforce Development. We're really excited to be partnering with Project Equity. You know, this is, I think, our second year working with them, and they provide such a great resource for our business community and employees here in San Francisco. I think it's really important that businesses know about this option as they look to maybe transition out of the business, because for us, we want to maintain the business presence in the city and also look at a new model which can encourage employees to own the business, and it helps with wages and really just keeps that connectivity with the community. And so for us, we're really just looking to Project Equity to provide guidance and provide information to these businesses so that they, you know, remain in San Francisco, they remain thriving and part of our business ecosystem. I won't say too much more because I think it's a great presentation, but you know, I want to thank everyone for joining and looking forward to any questions.
Excellent, thank you, Manish. And my name is Donna Sky. I'm a business development manager here at Project Equity. I've also owned a business for about a decade in the city of San Francisco myself. So working with business owners and supporting them any way I can is something that's near and dear to my heart, you know, professionally and of course personally. So welcome today. Next slide. So I work with a local nonprofit called Project Equity. We're based in the Bay Area here, but we work with businesses all over the country, and we help business owners transition to employee ownership. We believe this is a really important tool for business owners, the future employee owners, and for local economies. Next slide. So we have a great webinar planned for you today. In short, our agenda is, you know, we're going to dig into the what and why of employee ownership. We're also going to debunk a few of the common myths that are out there. We'll talk a little bit about how it works. And we'll also talk about an employee-owned company that recently transitioned. And the company's called California Solar Electric. So you'll get to hear a little bit more about them. And the goal really for the webinar is to explore, how employee ownership could support you as a business owner, whether you're thinking about succession planning or ways that you can strengthen your business today and into the future. We know a lot of businesses have been hit really hard by the pandemic, and we really want this for you. So that means that throughout this webinar, if you have questions, either live in real time, please make sure you write them. You can put them in the question box or in the chat. We'll do our best to address them today during the webinar, but if we don't get to them, I will follow up with you and, just make sure you get those questions answered. Next slide. So before we dig in, I really want to hear from you, and just sort of take a measure around what you would like to learn more about today. If you want to, again, you can write those. There's some burning topics for you. You can put that in the chat. And then we also, I'd like to just sort of take a measure or temperature on a scale of 1 to 10. What would you rate your current knowledge of employee ownership? So, do you have an understanding of employee-owned businesses? Have you considered it yourself for your business? Also, are there any employee-owned companies that you shop at or that you've worked with as a business owner? So maybe a vendor or a customer. So you just sort of put that in the chat, and I'll make sure I talk about that a little bit more. Okay, excellent. Excellent. Okay, thank you for got some fun updates there. Okay, great. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so what is employee ownership? So we had a few people here write some comments. Oh, it's company. Okay, co-op. Some people wrote it's a co-op. Yes, a co-op is a type of employee-owned company. Somebody else here wrote ESOP. Yes, ESOP is also a type of employee-owned company. And to us, the way we define employee-owned is a business that is owned and operated by the people who work in the business. There's different type of structures, as some of you have mentioned in the chat there. But in essence, it's owned by the people who are working there. Let's go on. So let's move on to the quiz. All right, so our first question, we can just click forward. True or false? And anyone, again, you can raise your hand if you want to say it, or you can write the answer. Selling to employees requires accepting a lower sale price. So this is something sometimes I talk to business owners every day. I hear this come up. Okay, we'll get a moment here. All right, it looks like a lot of you are getting this correct. Selling to your employees, let's see the answer there. That is false. So selling to your employees will not require you to have a lower sale price. In fact, many business owners get, they get market rate for their company, and it's established based on the company's financial health, much in the same way it would if you're selling to the out in the open market as well. But this way, you're selling to your employees. Okay, next slide. Question number 2. True or false? Are employees going to have to foot the bill? So this comes up a lot too. When I work with business owners, they wonder, well, my employees don't have the money to buy the company. So do you believe that to be true or false? Let's see the answer here. And that is also false. Employees are not obligated to finance the transactions because it's leveraged through, it's actually financed through a leveraged buyout. So the company itself would take out some financing to buy the business from the current business owner. Next slide. Okay, true or false? Owners can remain involved in strategic direction after the company transitions. True or false? That is true. Selling owners have many options to stay involved in the business. So some business owners have elected to, when the company transitions, they've elected to stay on as one of the employee owners themselves. So they move from being the sole owner into being one of the employee owners. And sometimes the owners choose to stay on as someone on the board of directors or as a senior advisor. So really, you know, that can be customized to meet your goals. I'd like to go to the next slide, please. And then the last question here, at least for the quiz, I'll be asking you all some more questions a little bit later on. True or false? All employees will be managing the business equally. So before we go to the answer, oh, there we go, false. So this is something that does come up a lot. So the management would definitely stay in place. It can, you know, really ensure that the company would continue to be successful. So the management stays in place, but the governance or the organizational structure changes. So thank you all for the participation and for some of the chat and for answering that. We'll go on to the next question, well, to the next slide. Okay, so as a business owner, why would you want to know about employee ownership? You know, you know, you all made time, you're all very busy. It's been a very challenging year for a lot of business owners. Why is the time now? Why are we making sure that, you know, we spread the word about this? And it's because we understand, you know, that there is a twin crisis facing many small business owners right now between COVID and the silver tsunami. The silver tsunami, if you haven't heard of that, that's basically a phenomenon that over half of all privately held businesses right now are owned by baby boomers. And as those baby boomers are retiring, there may be more businesses for sale than there are buyers. So, you know, we have that coupled with the COVID and the pandemic that has affected so many business owners. And recently, as of June, last month, over 70% of businesses have said that they've been negatively affected by the pandemic, and more than half believe that they feel it's going to take 6 months or more to get back to normal. So, you know, what kind of solutions can there be for business owners to be more resilient when these kind of crises are impacting so many business owners right now? And we believe that employee ownership can be a powerful solution that can, you know, definitely be a solution for some of these issues facing you all. Next slide. So locally in San Francisco, there are quite a few older businesses or legacy businesses. More specifically, there are over 8,000 small businesses in San Francisco alone that are 20 years or older. So as these business owners start to look at their succession plan and what's next, it's really important to kind of see, well, you know, what are our options? What are our choices, right? And these businesses also employ about 1 out of 4 workers in San Francisco. So we're talking about a really far-reaching economic impact on the city. Next slide. Also, businesses aren't easy to sell. I know I live in the Bay Area. I had a business in the Bay Area, and I know we live in the land of unicorns. There have been, you know, we hear about those companies that sell for millions of dollars and even billions of dollars. But in fact, selling a business isn't easy for a lot of business owners. Only about 20% will sell, and about 15% transition within their families. And that's a lower percentage than have been in the past. So with that, there's a lot of businesses that are at risk of closing. Next slide. So again, with these challenges, there's also an opportunity. As business owner, we see challenges as opportunities, right? Where can there be a new way to do something, right? And employee ownership can be a solution with many benefits for the business owners, the employees themselves, and the local economies. But with that, though, what do you think some of the challenges? Do you have some thoughts around what you think some challenges may be for employee-owned businesses, as well as benefits? Of course, you can put that in the chat. But we want to hear from you because you're the ones thinking about this and considering it. So please, make sure you enter that. Okay, we have challenges. Okay, someone wrote, a challenge might be that it takes longer to make decisions. Okay, that's a good one. That's something I've heard. I can answer that right now. What we found with employee-owned companies, kind of going back to what we said earlier, when the company transitions to employee-owned, the management can and often does stay intact. So the management structure that helped that company be successful can stay intact, and the decision-making process can be largely the same. However, when the company transition, the governance changes, and in those governance documents, whether it's not an operating agreement or the bylaws, there may be some larger decisions that the full employee ownership base would vote on. But those are really outlined, and they tend to be some of the larger type decisions. And what I've heard some owners say is that although there is that extra step that can happen for some of the larger decisions, something might be a very large purchase, they could have written in the bylaws that the full employee base would vote on that. Because everyone has a say, we've heard from employee owners that there's more buy-in. So it could take a little bit longer, a little bit of an extra step for those big decisions, but there's more buy-in because the full employee base feels like they've had a say. Not feels like, they actually have had a say in fact. Okay, great question. Thank you. All right. So let's go on to the next slide here. So let's dig in a little bit more about what the benefits are. Yes, so as I mentioned, employee ownership can be great for workers. So some of the facts around that are that employees or workers in employee-owned companies have 33% higher wages. So, we're talking some significant differences that people who are owners of the companies they work at have in their paychecks every week or twice a month or however often they're paid, and that they stay for 53% longer. So they have longer job tenure, and the individual employee owners have a higher household net worth. And something I am hearing more and more, specifically with the pandemic, that some of owners have shared that they are having challenges attracting new employees and retaining their top employees. So having an ownership structure where the workers earn more and have a longer job tenure is something that's really important to consider. Next slide. Also, employee ownership strengthens the businesses themselves. So this is from a national study from the National Center for Employee Ownership that's done over multiple years. And what they found is that the profit margin of an employee-owned company is 8.5% higher than their peers in the same industry, and that they also have higher sales and growth. year over year. So not just a one-time benefit, something that happens year over year to strengthen a company. Next slide. There's also unique benefits to the selling owner. So employee-owned or business owners who sell to their employees do, as we mentioned earlier, have the opportunity to achieve a market rate sale price. They also get to retain influence and pacing of the exit and timeline. As I said, some owners choose to stay on as an employee owner themselves post transition. They also really get to guide that transition, so it can be very friendly to the owner in terms of timeline, and also continuing to guide this business that really so many of you have built from the ground up and have put so much of your blood, sweat, and tears into making successful. As well, becoming employee owned can ensure that the company itself, your legacy that you've built, can continue and go on and on post, after you move on. So I know many owners, it's something that's really, they've expressed is really important to them. So another big benefit. Okay, so let's go on to and talk a little bit about how these work. So I'm going to go on to the next slide. So in short, and at a very, very high level, because there is a lot of nuance, in short, an owner, or for you, as if you're considering your business, you would sell your company to a newly formed employee-owned business. So, and that sale would be financed via a leveraged buyout. So your individual employees would not need to have the finance or the capital to buy the company from you. Instead, it would be a leveraged buyout. So the company itself would be able to take out debt to buy the business from you. Project Equity has a fund, and there's also lending institutions that we work with that can help finance a portion of that sale. And there's a variety of ways that they can be financed. It can come from an outside lender. Sometimes owners themselves the selling owner chooses to finance the sale. Can really be customized, specific for your business. But in essence, the company would pay back this debt that's taken out to buy the business from you over a period of time. So again, it really provides this opportunity for people who are working in the business to become owners. They don't need to have the capital up front. It's the company itself that takes out that debt, and you as the selling owner would be paid for the business that you've built. Next slide. Okay, great. So as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk a little bit more about a company that has recently transitioned to employee ownership. And that company, if we could go on to the next slide, is called California Solar Electric, or Cal Solar for short. This is a company based in, they're a worker-owned cooperative located in Grass Valley, so right here in California. And they recently transitioned to employee ownership. We at Project Equity assisted them with that transition, and we have a short video that I'd like to share with you today, because I think it's really important for you to have the opportunity to hear about the company's journey directly from the employee owners themselves. And I just want to take a moment before we start that video to just remind you all, answer, you can put any of your questions in the chat or in the questions tab itself, and I'll probably be responding to some of them as that video is going on. Okay, next slide. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, we got a little kitten there. Nice. Okay, great. So, what do y'all think of that? You have any thoughts? Please let me know. Pretty inspiring, huh? Okay. So, again, yeah, let me know your thoughts. So let's go on to the next slide. And let's talk a little bit about readiness factors. So when I speak with business owners every day, I have the opportunity really and the privilege to talk to business owners every day. And something we spend a lot of time exploring together. I'll just say that we have a saying here at Project Equity: when you talk to one small business, you've talked to one small business. And that's really to say that each company is unique and your circumstances are unique. However, this is not an exhaustive list, but in general, we found the following to be good indicators of readiness for an employee ownership transition or an employee buyout. So the first is profitability. So, a company that has good financial health over the past 5 years is generally something that's really important. We do understand that with the twin crisis that we talked about, that this year is an outlier. So, if you've had a company that has been hit hard by the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic, you had good financial health, and even now, as things are opening back up, you see the company positioned to resume that success. It's a strong indicator of readiness. But again, give us a call. Set up a meeting with me, and we could talk about that. We know this year has been quite unusual. As well, management bench. So, something that comes up often, I will talk to a business owner, someone who's been a business owner for many years, and she or he may have a very oversized role. They were very hands-on, right? So if there's a management team in place, that's great. And if there's not, the owner having a willingness to hire some people to come on to take on some of that management responsibilities would be key and important. If there's someone in-house that you'd like to develop, excellent. If not, we can work with you and help you find someone else to take on, to assess who would be needed to take on some of those roles. And then another key indicator is a proven track record. So, this is a good ownership structure for companies, established businesses that have some experience and have a history of success. Because, the idea is that they're strong businesses that are transitioning to employee owned, and they will only be further strengthened once that ownership structure changes. I'd also, I'd like to go on to the next slide and dig in a little bit more about the transition process itself. So here at Project Equity, as Lars mentioned, we help business owners transition and really help to guide the business owners and the employee owners through that process. We have a 5-stage approach, and it's been really specifically designed to inform the business owner and then, of course, the future employee owners every step of the way, so that you're fully informed and have the information you need to decide about moving forward. So usually our work starts with a formal actually our work starts with something like this. Step 1 is a exploration. So, it could start with you setting up a consultation call with me or one of my colleagues here at Project Equity and the business engagement team. And we explore, we talk about the different types of ownership employee ownership structures. I get to understand a little bit about your business, what your goals are, and initial exploration of if this could be a good fit for you. And then the next phase is a formal feasibility analysis. And that is usually about a 3-month process. And we work directly with owners, and we could also, include a few key employees if the owner would like that to happen. And the goal of this feasibility assessment or feasibility study, we call it both assessment or study, is to determine the financial feasibility of a transition. We also assess the management needs post-transition. What will happen if the owner stays on as one of the employee owners, or if they will move on, what would be the new management needs for the company. And then we develop a straw model of what a new employee-owned version of the company would be. And then the owner can take that to get initial feedback from the full employee base to determine if there's interest for the company. So that's really, the essence of that feasibility assessment. And at that point as well, the owner can decide if this is the right choice for them. And if that is so, the company can then move on to a transition. And the transition process is about a 9-month process. And that's where the design happens. That's where, things like, how will decisions be made for a new employee-owned company? The financing for the sale would be worked out. And at the end of that phase, there's a sale. So the newly formed employee-owned entity would buy that company from the selling owner. And then lastly, we work with companies in what we call, it's our Thrive program. And that's really to support the business post-transition and to help build that culture of ownership. So the being employee owned is really a structure, but building the culture of ownership is something that does need to happen with intention to really have the maximum benefit from being employee owned. So next slide. And there's some considerations. So we talked about, in essence, about the timeline. So in general, it's about a total of, be 12 months or so, if you include the feasibility assessment and then the transition itself. And there are also things that the owner and the company can do to help ensure a smooth and timely transition. So something to consider is, having an up-to-date financial record. So getting those financial records up to date to be looked at, as well. Allowing time for the owners and the transition team to really be engaged through that process, as well as keeping pace with the meetings and meeting milestones to further along and move closer to the sale and the full transition. And then really having this desire of win-win objectives for all parties. So, having that in the company where the owner is really excited and interested in the future employee-owned business is success, and that the owners, the future employee owners and the team also are ready to engage and to work with the owner. Next slide. So with that, I'd like to just have another check-in on questions. I'm going to check here and see if we have any. Okay. Let's see. Any questions? Okay. Oh, here we have a good one. All right. So again, how are these deals financed? Okay. So there's a couple different ways that these deals can be financed, and again, I would encourage you specifically to set up a consult call with me so we can talk about what the owner's goals are. But there are some companies where the owners have chosen to fully finance it themselves, and then There are businesses where there have been sort of a combination of both, where the owner finances a portion of the sale price, and then there's an outside lending source, whether it's a CDFI or Project Equity also has a fund as well that can come in to finance a portion of that sale. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, okay. What happens? Here's one. What happens if an employee owner quits or needs to be let go? It's a great question. So again, employee ownership is a structure, right? So there are, whether an employee owner leaves of their own accord or they are involuntarily let go, that can and does happen at times. And depending on the operating agreement and the bylaws, depending on the ownership structure, the details of that would be really specific to each company. So whether they have money in their account, if it's a co-op or an ESOP. If the company is an ESOP, the money that they have will be rolled over into another retirement account, or there would be specific tax implications of that. And then if it was a co-op, the details of when and the timeline of the employee owners having their money returned to them or their employee buy-in amount returned to them would be ironed out and specific to their operating agreement or bylaws. So great question. Anything else? Okay, wonderful. Well, with that, I'd like to go on to the next slide there. And I would like to invite all of you. We do have another webinar coming up on August 10th at 12 p.m. And I hope you can all join us. Some of the information will be reviewed on that day, but we'll be highlighting a different employee-owned company on that day. As well, as I mentioned throughout the webinar, I'd love to just invite any and all of you to sign up for a free consultation. And you could do so by emailing me and or going to our website, project-equity.org, to sign up for a consultation with myself or any of my colleagues here at Project Equity, and we'd love to talk to you and learn more about your business and further explore if employee ownership could be the right fit for you. And before we close out, I just would like to, if Manish, if there's anything you'd like to say before we wrap up, you can do so.
Sure. I just wanted to thank again the work of Project Equity. I think it's a great tool and resource to have. And we kind of talked about the aging of our businesses, and we have a legacy business program. But that's something that we value in the city, and we want to have those businesses continue. So if this is something that can benefit them and benefit the city, we're really appreciative and supportive of that. So with that, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye.